Absolutely. So I grew up in a very teeny tiny village in the southern part of Germany, and I always hated school, to be honest, because you needed to learn, or I needed to learn so many different things which are useless.
A couple of years ago, you did some programming courses, and in university, you did like business courses, right? So
Yeah.
what was the overall thought process of, taking these like JavaScript courses?
When I was like 18 or 19, AI was not a big topic. So right now I'm 25, and there were some AI applications, but not like we see today. And back then everyone said, if you want to found a successful company, you need to know how to code.
I think many people find it challenging to just come up with like new ideas. Like if you just sit down right now and like, let's just say for example, like if you have to think about another new outreach method in like your emails to put like a new feature, like how do you come up with these thought process or at least like spark them in your brain?
Boredom.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Gen Z Fastlane. Today we have Moritz here. And for the audience who don't know you, could you briefly introduce yourself on, what you're currently building and how's the business been going?
Hi guys, my name is Moritz, and for the last years I was building up the sales team of a now 100 million valuated startup. And in that time I experienced lots of ups, lots of downs, but in general I started noticing some patterns, how to attract new customers and what is important for prospects. And since then I'm building up a community of young sales experts who want to thrive to perfection, who want to become the next generation of salespeople. And here I'm building a course to cover everything which is related, not just to cold outreach, so cold emailing, cold DMs, but also to train you with all the sales things you need to know, how to have a sales call, how to get a sales script, how to hire a sales force, which can execute in your name and bring you not just more revenue, but to bring you the joy of building a whole sales organization, a whole company, basically. So I want to enable people to become great at entrepreneurship and to master the art of sales.
Yeah, this sounds super interesting, super fascinating. Would love to delve deeper into the course. But first of all, I'm just always curious and I like to ask everyone this question because I believe everyone has their own unique story to tell. So could you briefly describe, how growing up was for you in a couple of sentences and what
Yeah.
inspired you to become when you were like young compared to your present self?
Absolutely. So I grew up in a very teeny tiny village in the southern part of Germany, and I always hated school, to be honest, because you needed to learn, or I needed to learn so many different things which are useless. Like, of course, it gives you a good understanding of how the world works in certain terms, but you needed to learn, everyone needed to be very good in everything. And I just don't see the point in it because kids have different kinds of skills and different kinds of talents. And in school, talent was not so much like kids with a certain talent were not so much helped in that direction. So for example, someone who was great in math uh, struggled in art, for example, or in languages, but they needed to be good in everything, and other way around as well. And then I had the pleasure to study at one of Germany's Ivy League universities, which taught me more about learning. Because what is funny there, if you apply there, they don't look so deep inside your grades and all of that. It's a very deep process. It's a very deep selection process. So first of all, you need to apply there with your thoughts on big question of this century. Then if they like it, you get a step further. Then you get invited to a case study day. So you sleep there, and then on the next day in the morning, you start with a case study from a real corporation, and you need to team up with other applicants. Then you have a math test, then you have an English test, then you have a finance test. And then if they like that, you go one step further, and then you have an interview with students, with teachers, with alumni, and with people from the economy. And if they like that, then you're accepted to the university. But it's more, it's not just about grades. It's about you as a person. It's about you and your thought patterns. And what I learned there is how to ask the right questions, how to ask critical questions, and not just accept the status quo. So back then, I remember one of my favorite professors in the first lecture, he said, "Hey, if you think something I'm telling you is wrong, I accept that. We're going to have a discussion. And if your arguments are better than mine, I will change my point of view on that topic." And that was just something I didn't know from school, because in school it was always like, it is what it is. Everything is how the teachers say. And then you come to university and it's different. You learn how to ask the right questions. And there I studied my bachelor's for 4 years and then got into work life. And it helped me a lot to understand certain dynamics of the corporate world very much. And actually, this is just very recent news, because I never wanted to study again, but now a great position opened, and just for fun, because I'm really looking inside that and how to get a better person in what you do. I will start studying my master's again. And that's quite exciting for me, because that academia sometimes can be a little tricky, a little tough, and also not very helpful in an economy, in a corporate environment. But what I found here, I found a study. It's called Master of Entrepreneurship, which is really getting inside that use case, inside that knowledge area, which I think more people, more students should look deeper inside. Because, I mean, so many people are giving everything in their studies, studying hours, and then becoming, sorry, but a corporate idiot. And then they're in a corporation and then they get laid off. So what do? You are 100% dependent on someone else. If you're an entrepreneur, you can really solve a big problem in the world, and you're responsible for your own faith, for everything around that. Of course, there are some factors like market, environment, and everything, but you are the one deciding which way to go, and you're dependent on yourself, and you can shape your own reality and also the reality of the future economy. So that's why I think it's great if especially young students look deeper inside entrepreneurship.
Nice, nice. So expanding upon like the university networks, I think there's like lots of controversial with that. Some people find the networks really useful and some like don't really utilize the network. So for you personally, how's the university network? Are you still connected with some people there, doing business with them, or?
Yes, 100%. So when I decided to look for a university, it was important for me that it's a university with a good network. And there are some factors you can get with a good network, because everyone can learn everything everywhere. You don't necessarily need to study to learn about a topic. But what you get is you're spending time with people who went through the same process than you did. People who put in hours to study, and you're all doing that together. And that creates a bond. And that helps tremendously in the business life, because when you have a question, you can ask your alumni network, and there will be someone, when you study something which is meaningful to you, you will find someone in that network who can relate to your question. And then you can ask them. And then it's a great network where it's about providing and also taking in some points. But the most important thing is that you give value to that network. And then when you need it, most likely something will come back.
Got you. And I also noticed that like a couple of years ago, you did some programming courses, and in university you did like business courses,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
what was the overall thought process of, taking these like JavaScript courses?
So when I was like 18 or 19, AI was not a big topic. So right now I'm 25, and there were some AI applications, but not like we see today. And back then, everyone said, if you want to found a successful company, you need to know how to code. So I sat down, I think it was called Code Camp or something like that. It was an
Yeah,
online
something like that.
course. And then I tried it and I used it, but I never really connected with it. So now I know how, like what to read out of code, but I wouldn't say that I can code applications. And honestly, I think you don't necessarily need to, because if you focus on business, or specifically just business is not enough, but if you focus on sales, you have a skill which many people who can code don't have. So that's a perfect co-founder match, because if every co-founder, or if your co-founder is similar to you from the skill set, it might work on a personal level, but on a company level, most likely it will not work, because the more different you are in your skill set, the better it is in that case. So I think coding helped me to understand my technical co-founders, but I wouldn't say, especially nowadays with GPT, with Perplexity AI and all that applications, you don't need to be the best in coding, because you can get good feedback, but also you need to decide in which area you want to go. And I didn't want to go inside coding. I wanted to go inside sales. So I decided that path for me.
But this actually sounds super interesting because personally, I always have this fear that I'm kind of missing out, on the technical side of things.
Yeah.
So what would be your advice for those who are trying to, I guess, like be like a single founder rather than, co-founding like a more technical person or more salesperson?
So, okay, let me tell you a little bit context about that. Imagine that. So when you have the perfect product, how should you get customers when you don't know how to sell? If you know how to sell, you can sell something without having a product. Of course, I don't tell you that it's morally okay to do that, but look at that way. So I would think, as a founder, learn how to do sales, learn how to sell, and in the parallel, especially when you are a solo founder, learn no code tools. And with that, you can build your MVP, your minimal
Yeah.
viable product. And with that, you can find technical co-founders who then can code a certain backend or a more complex version of it. Or you can raise even money with that and then hire a technical person. But if you don't know how to sell it, the best idea is worthless. And when you know how to do sales, you can also test ideas. For example, with cold email or cold DMs. That's something we always do, because I love to iterate new ideas. So you have an idea, you send 1,000 cold emails every single month, and you have a campaign which lasts for 2 weeks. So you try out that campaign in a certain niche, and you try it out with your hypothesis. So, for example, my hypothesis is that every C-level in America needs my pen. So let's assume that's my product. Then I can craft that in a cold email, target only C-levels in America, looking to sell them that pen. And then I see from the email copy and from my hypothesis I put in, if I get responses. If I get responses and people are like, yeah, that sounds great, I need a pen to improve my signature, then I'm onto something. If we don't get any replies with it, or if people say fuck off, then okay, that might not be a good product. And if you still think it's a good product, then you can adjust your messaging. So you can try it out. But the time, especially right now when the economy is in a certain downturn, to just build a product and hope that the best product will be discovered somehow, I think that's something founders should not do at the moment.
Yeah, I really like your point. I believe that, sales and marketing is like a timeless skill to learn. So like no matter how long humans exist, like you always need sales and marketing. But coding, it might, in the future, you can easily code with English as long as you know some computational logic. That's like a timesy skill. I think Naval Ravikant talked about that. So yeah. Moving on to other projects that you worked on, like Travel Well and like Dates, what was your overall experience with that and what was some core takeaways for yourself?
I'm a fan of B2B, so business to business operations, because in the past I founded multiple B2C companies. And a B2C company is fun when you have viral growth. Then it's amazing. But what you have with B2C is most of the time, so if it's only a B2C focus, that customers, so private people pay you maybe $5 a month, and then a little teeny tiny tool doesn't work, and then you get 1 star in the App Store, or you get 1 star at Trustpilot or wherever. They don't talk to the support, so and then just complain over the internet, and then you can basically see when you get a 1 star review that the viral growth gets reduced, because then the App Store or other ways where you can sell your stuff don't like that if someone gets bad reviews. And that is not because the overall idea doesn't work, but it is because something teeny tiny didn't work. And in B2B, you can, you will have most likely have a lower amount of customers which need more of your attention, but they also pay you way more of in terms of the price. So then you don't sell a software for $5 a month, but for 5,000 a month, for example. And then with those people, with those, especially with the first customers, you can really build a strong relationship. You know exactly who they are, what they want, what problems they have. So you can really build a long-term value-based relationship. What do I mean with that? Is that you understand everything of them. You understand their family situation. You maybe even know their wife or husband, that they have kids, what hobbies they have. You even sometimes can then go out for lunch or dinner with them and then talk on a different level, not just always about business, but as a human, you talk to another human about everything around. And I think that is what makes it so interesting, that in B2B sales, you can really build a good relationship with your customers. And when they have an issue, they come to me first before they write a review. They come to me first. They tell me, okay, this is not working. Can you fix it? Yeah, for sure. And then we fix it. And in B2B, it's also a thing that things take longer. So a sales cycle is not one day, but it's maybe 2 weeks or 3 months or sometimes 12 months when you have a higher price, or we say CapEx in like orientated, CapEx intense good. So when the investment is very high, which companies need to take, then the sales cycle is a little longer. But in that sales cycle, you have time to really get to know them.
Super interesting. Haven't actually thought about the control and relationship, that B2B sales can do. I only thought about, the high ticket of, B2B compared to B2C. But, moving on to like the sales systems that you're currently building for at Global Fuel Cell, which is a German green tech startup for those who don't know. And I think many people will have this question, and you mentioned it a couple of times on your other podcast, but what was your overall thinking of getting into this niche? And what kinds of sales systems are you currently running and find most successful with?
So there is, of course, a different type, because what we're selling there is hardware, mostly hardware, also some software components. And I would say, considered to what most of the people know in the sales space, it's extremely high ticket. And what still works there perfectly is cold emails. Cold emails, cold DMs, also be present on trade fairs and to talk with people, and to be on a physical base, in like visiting industry meetups where you are with other executives in that area, where you talk with them, where you really get insight and start to know them. It's lots of handshaking and lots of building trust. And I would say 90% of what is like about the talking in those meetings is not about the business itself. It's about some other things. And then you start to get to know each other. And then the last 10% is, oh yeah, by the way, what are you doing? Oh, wow, that sounds interesting. Okay, let's see if we can do something. And then it's a connection on a human base. So That works as well, pretty well. And also LinkedIn, like not just the DM outreach there, but also the the posting of certain milestones and everything around that. So to to I always explain it like a glass of water. Sales is like a glass of water. And every time you do something good, which adds up trust, you put in one little drop of water inside that glass. Every time, a little drop more. So when you write them an email and ask them about their weekend or about their plans, how the tennis match went on the weekend, you put in one drop of water inside. When you send them some testimonials, you put in one drop. And then, of course, when you do something bad, when you bend the reality or when you just don't tell them the truth, you need to take out a drop. And the fuller the glass of water gets, the more trust is in, and the more likely it is that you can do business with them.
Yeah, got you. I really like that analogy. And like talking about like the green, like over, the overall niche of like green tech.
Yeah.
I think many people here are probably, if they're starting out, you probably heard of the classic software industry,
Yeah.
SaaS, like targeting those industries. So what attracted you to green tech, and like moving forward, like what do you think are some underrated niches for those who are looking to explore?
I mean, whenever you look for an industry which you want to get inside, I would always look for certain factors. So what is future proof? Number one. Second is where you're passionate about. And number three is which is just cool. So what is fun to do for you every day? Because you will do that a lot. You will be very deep inside that niche. And for me, number one, future proof. Green tech is future proof. If we don't fix our environment, there will not be so much good time to live. Maybe not for us, but for our children or the children of the children. So that's number one. Number two, I think it's a very interesting area to target companies when it comes to hydrogen, to green solutions for like heavy and high polluting industries. And number three, it's lots of fun to look for ways how can we not just sustainably improve our future, but also make that sustainable aspect a must have so that companies can save money or make money even when they shift from a normal diesel engine or a bad technology for the environment to a green technology. So how can we make a business case out of it that you can even improve their economical situation? Because that's always the biggest bottleneck, that many companies think, oh, green tech, it must be expensive. But it doesn't need to be expensive. Sometimes you can even improve the efficiency. You can save the money in terms of like general operating costs and all that around. So that's why I think that niche especially is very interesting.
Nice. So diving deeper into like getting into a niche for someone starting out, like with not as many case studies, like what advice would you give to them to stand out from, the other competitor who's trying to also get into their sales systems?
In the beginning, build trust. So in the beginning, you don't know anything about a niche. So what I would recommend is to go to a niche which you think could be fun and then set the market entry barrier to work with you as low as possible. So no big setup fee, no big retainer, but make the people pay for what you offer. But reduce it to the bare minimum so that you can get knowledge. I mean, the first customers or the first like ways to interact with the niche, have more benefit for you than for your counterpart. And you want to reduce the risk for your counterpart, for your prospect. And I think that's the number one thing to do. So get experience in a niche. Maybe even when you're a student, act like a student. Write the people you're looking up to in that niche on LinkedIn. Be like, hey, I know I'm just a student, but I would love to get an internship, or like I would love to learn from you. Would you be able to hop on a call for 30 minutes for a study project or something like that? And then you can talk with them. You don't need to always talk with them in a business context, because when you're still a student, you can use that, because people, especially managers, are more likely to talk with students about a study question or about a research than they're willing to talk with people who are clearly salespeople and want to sell them something. And that's the
So
first way
develop,
to get insight, in my opinion.
yeah, so developing like a relationship and just showing them that you're not trying to sell them instantly, and that you're actually super interested in the niche.